Time for the morning buzz. President Joe Biden bringing back mask mandates as First Lady Jill Biden tested positive for COVID-19 on Monday. Now, even though Biden doesn't have COVID, he'll be masking up while indoors and around others as a precaution. Policy, though, is facing backlash as schools are now forcing students to wear masks again. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance introducing the Freedom to Breathe Act. It's going to crack down on the ability by the federal government or commercial airlines to enforce mask mandates again. He joined Fox News' Sean Hannity yesterday. Watch this.
If you think back to the origins of the pandemic, these guys used mask mandates and vaccine mandates to effectively talk about half the country as second-class citizens. This is coming back unless we stop it from happening. That's why I introduced this legislation, and I'm going to force the Democrats to vote on it. If they say the mask mandates are not coming back, then come to the Senate floor, vote with us, and say no more mask mandates. Let's make it bipartisan.
Can you believe, Lee, that we are now at a place where we're having to talk about legislating not having to cover our faces again after, 2+ years of being locked down thanks to COVID?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine that this is the place that we're in. Now, I can understand why Joe Biden might want to wear a mask. That's fine. It's up to you. That's his choice. Let it be our choice. Yeah. There's been so many studies that say the masks just simply are not effective. So what happened to the whole message of following the science? Mm-hmm. Are we not supposed to follow the science when it disagrees with what it is that you want to be perpetuating? So in this case, I think it's time. Let's get the masks off. If people want to wear them, wear them. If you want to send your kids to school with them, send your kids to school with them. You should have a right to do that, but you should also have a right not to. There's plenty of studies that say there's no proof that it's going to help.
Yeah, Rebecca. I mean, I know several people in New York that can't wait to put their masks back on. I mean, COVID was their Super Bowl. But at the same time, you've got this school in D.C., this elementary school. They're going to mask up all the kids again. University of Michigan is now sending all this guidance out. They want to have masks. If you have COVID, even if you have your own dorm room and you live by yourself in your own dorm room, you have to leave campus. It's gotten ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, I think people realize that it's ridiculous, and I think that people want freedom. And, you look at Asia and they tell you, oh, the smog is this, wear your mask today, and everyone masks up, that's a problem. And that's kind of what they see is, oh, we want that level of control in America, and it just does not work for Americans, period.
Yeah, well, it's going to work for the mask sellers. It's going to work for the drug companies that are putting all the new boosters out there. I think that's really interesting. I don't know. I mean, do you think that this is going to become another we've got 2024 around the corner, Lee. Is this going to become another issue, another political issue? I mean, J.D. Vance is ready to put down legislation over it.
Well, it's undoubtedly going to become a political issue again. Is it going to be as political as it was before? I don't think the American people will stand for it. And certainly we've seen what happens with certain states. Certain states are going to say we will not allow this to happen. And I think, if this does become front and center again, I think it's going to be advantage Ron DeSantis. So he gets back to his message of freedom. He gets back to his message of keeping businesses open. He gets back to his message of allowing kids to be kids. All of those kinds of things, rather than focused on so many of the things that he has that's had him losing ground, which I think he's focused too much on woke wars, fighting against companies, fighting against a lot of things that aren't most important to the American people. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it could actually help some of the Republican candidates if it does come front and center, because I don't think Americans want it. And certainly parents of young children are going to really, really push back on this because it has a huge impact on them.
Yeah, even Senator Rand Paul, he's saying enough is enough, especially for the children. And he's been very vocal in saying the science isn't there, to Lee's point. Exactly. It's not. Even Dr. Anthony Fauci still, even though he's retired, refuses to admit that the masks are a mistake. I don't think his ego can handle
even
that.
Though he has a public email acknowledgement saying that, yes, masks don't protect you. It's really just psychological. That's in writing, released by a FOIA request. I mean, we have this data. I mean, let's get real, be honest with us. If you're going to lie to our face, we're not going to believe you. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I have to say. Well, again, Rand Paul says none of our children should be put back in masks. Enough is enough. And he even said, he's like, in America, not one healthy child died from COVID. I repeat that, not one. The number is 0. That was what Rand Paul said on Fox News last night, Lee.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that we not forget that. I think fear is a really powerful motivator, and I think it's really important that we don't scare the American people and that we stay level-headed. We've been through an extreme extraordinary amount over the last several years, and we need leadership who's going to help us get through it with hope and optimism and smarts. Frankly,
exactly.
we don't need to be scared into doing things that aren't going to help us.
All right.